welcome to this week's Academic Data Science Alliance virtual series, Data Science Conversations. We'll be talking with folks from University of Texas at El Paso and University of Virginia. But first, I have a few things to cover. If you're not familiar with how to use PowerPoint, if you're not familiar with ADSA, we are the Academic Data Science Alliance, a community of data science researchers and educators who take responsibility for a just, equitable future where data science approaches are thoughtfully applied in all domains for the benefit of all. And as you can see in the photo there, we are a happy bunch, especially when pictured from above. So as I mentioned at the top of the session, this is part of our virtual conference that we've been holding over the last couple of months. And you can check out additional virtual sessions that we'll be running up until the end of this month at the URL there. You can also snap the QR code down there in the corner to get yourself to the ADSA website and learn more about other activities that we do. With that, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Amy Wagler, who is at the University of Texas at El Paso. And she will take it from here. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will be moderating this discussion. I will mention I'm at University of Texas, El Paso. I'll begin with introducing David, who is coming to us from the University of Texas at San Antonio, which is a mere, I think, 650 miles away or so from El Paso. He is the director of the School of Data Science there at UTSA and is, in fact, the founding director and professor of practice in the University College there. He is accountable for leading that School of Data Science in their direction with regard to research, education, and value creation for government, industry, and community partners. He's a past executive director of the Berkeley Institute for Data Science at University of California, Berkeley. And then he also co-led a data analytics institute at The Ohio State University. Prior to that, he had a career at Bell Labs. So welcome, David. Our other speaker today is Arlyn from the University of Virginia School of Data Science. She is Associate Dean for Administration for the School of Data Science at the university there. That School for Data Science enables data science work through the university and coordinates the educational and data-driven research programs taking place at the university. Dr. Burgess oversees the operational stability of the school and also directs these initiatives driven by the interdisciplinary interest in data, develops new programming to engage the community, and works closely with multiple university colleagues to address central issues in collaboration, discovery, and use of data-informed methods. I'd like to note too that she serves on the governor's Data Sharing and Analytics Advisory Committee for the Commonwealth of Virginia and holds degrees from Northwestern and Virginia as well. So welcome to you both. I'm going to ask today Arlyn to begin. We'll do short presentations for each of you, and then we'll go back and forth and have some question and answer time together. Before we proceed, I'd like to mention or remind everyone that during these presentations and during the primary discussion, would you please, if you have a question, just drop it in the chat window. I have it open here to my side, so I will be addressing that with the speakers whenever they come up. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again for the introduction. My name is Arlyn Burgess. I am the Associate Dean for Administration at the School of Data Science at UVA. And today I get the opportunity, delight, to talk to you about data science at UVA and how we are working to build what we call a school without walls. So a couple of agenda points here, what we hope to talk to in a very short time period. First, defining what it is that we mean by data science. There are as many definitions as people that are giving them. And so one of the things that we've worked on is defining what we mean by data science and how it informs the way that we grow. So a model for internal and external consistency. An incredibly important part of our growth plan is implementing a sustainable plan for the way that we hope to grow, and that includes managing and finding human and financial resources to achieve our mission. Again, my position is Associate Dean for Administration, so I'm specifically focused on organization. So I'll be talking more about that as opposed to the academic side in terms of content development. And then finally, what it is that we're doing to build a school without walls. We think a lot about the demand for data science and how it is that we determine what it is that we at the School of Data Science at UVA want to supply to meet the demand that we hope to meet. We think about that as a bounded ambition. So thinking about really trying to define what it is that we want to do in an inclusive, collaborative, vibrant, and dynamic community. So first, a little bit about the School of Data Science at the University of Virginia. We are an independent entity, a school within the university, established in 2019. We are the 12th school at the university and the newest. And we do offer our own degrees. We currently have a professional master's program that is offered in two formats, both residential and in a part-time online format. And we have an undergraduate minor in data science. We are currently working on the approval process for a PhD in data science and the development of an undergraduate major as well. We have a vibrant research program and also work on community programs where we're engaging the local as well as the state communities, and then also thinking about what we're doing nationally and globally. So we are situated as an independent entity within the School of Data Science, within the university that works with other schools and units on grounds. A little bit about our core values in terms of how we define who we are and what it is that we do. First of all, excellence, what we do best. And this is incredibly important that we think about, what are we doing and how are we making sure that excellence is at the forefront of determining how we move forward. Inclusivity, respecting people, valuing diversity, and being committed to equity. This is related to the way that we build out our team, the voices that we make sure are at the table, and also the way that we think about inclusivity in the field of data science more broadly. We are committed to open innovation, transparent teamwork. This has to do with everything from the work that we create, the research that we do, the algorithms and data that we produce, as well as the organization. So things like this conversation today, talking about how we're doing what we're doing because we want to be contributing back to that community. And along those lines, being fair. So supporting the FAIR principles, find, access, interoperate, and reuse data in all research and education products. So again, thinking about the way that we define data science. So this model was defined by a project done by our faculty, really getting together and saying, who are we? What does data science mean at UVA? And creating alignment and understanding so that we could determine how we grow and how we utilize this as we grow. And so this model, which is pictured here on the right in this image, really explains what we would say are the 5 components of data science as systems, analytics, design, and value that are all connected by practice. So system, thinking about the data engineering, database management section of data science analytics, where all of that meaty machine learning kind of stuff lives. Design, really thinking about dissemination, data visualization. And then value, thinking about the ethics of the work that we're doing, as well as the business value that data science brings to an organization. All 4 of those components are connected by the domains in which they are practiced. And so that is what we would call the practice of data science. The creation of this model was incredibly important in terms of the growth and development of the School of Data Science. As we begin to think about our new programs, whether they're research, educational, or community programs, we think about how they align with and how they fit within this model. So if we're thinking about a program being a data science program, we're thinking about how how are we including attributes from each one of these, and how are we making sure that we have the expertise that's necessary to grow out these areas to really think about data science? And then how are we really being collaborative and interdisciplinary in the way that we think about the practice of data science? Again, the School of Data Science grew out of the Data Science Institute that was created at UVA in late 2013. So the school established in 2019. And when we were established as a school, there was a necessity for us to show that we could have a sustainable growth plan. And that included thinking about primarily financial resources, but those, of course, are how we support the human resources that are needed to do our program development. So we were established with the largest gift in private gift in university history, which was $120 million gift for the establishment of a School of Data Science. And then we also think about our financial portfolio in the way that we think about what our further philanthropic goals are, what it is we're trying to support with those philanthropy dollars, and then also thinking about broadening out and coming up with a truly balanced portfolio of tuition dollars that come in from both graduate and undergraduate programs, as well as research dollars, both direct and indirect expenditures that would be the full scope of what it is that we have for a budget for financial resources to move forward. Human resources are very hard to come by. It's a competitive market out there. We are in fact hiring 13 faculty positions right now. So we've got lots of people that are incredibly busy with interviews during this very busy hiring season. But without the human resources, we cannot do the program development. So we are actively hiring those human resources to expand our programs. And again, our academic programs, our research programs, and our community programs. So I think that one of the things that we have learned is that having that philanthropic gift is what made it possible for us to start when we could, and the way that we were able to grow. And now we're thinking about how we balance that portfolio, how we utilize those funds to really move forward. And then thinking about building a school without walls. So again, that program development is at the core of what we do. But especially in the early stages, administration is, and perhaps I'm biased here given what I do, but as important as anything else in terms of really developing something that can actually thrive. So the development of policies and procedures to determine how we grow and scale. How is our promotion and tenure policy different? How are we determining the way that we think about professional development? How do we grow? How are we thinking about those core values of openness and responsibility? Responsible data science is all about the practice of data science and the dissemination of the work that we do that includes ethical, legal, and policy factors. Really thinking about the way that we grow our team from a diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint, again, thinking about those voices. And finally, I would say recognition of the role that everyone plays in what a school is and how it grows, or any data science initiative is incredibly important. And we've seen that the need for a team to work together, both within the School of Data Science and across grounds, is incredibly important to make sure that we are, in fact, a thriving community of scholars and support for making things move forward. And I believe we're going to get a chance to talk about this beautiful building that was rendering here later. But those of you that know our dean know that he ends every presentation or conversation with saying onwards. And so onwards and upwards. And we're really excited to have a conversation with you about what we've learned and what we can share and learning from you as well.
Thank you so much. That was exciting to hear. And now, David, could you go ahead and share?
So thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I think the ADSA is doing a service to all of our organizations to bring us together and learn from one another. What I would like to do with the time I have available is to talk about how we're creating space physically and intellectually for data science for a more equitable, informed, and secure world at the University of Texas at San Antonio. Recently, there was an update released to the campus. The story of the school has really started out about a building, and now we're trying to expand that story to be more than a building. But because the building has been it is part of a strategic plan for the university to expand its presence in the city core of San Antonio to increase its contribution as an urban serving school. There's been a lot of attention at the School of Data Science building itself, and it is the first in a series of new buildings that will be going up downtown to bring more of the university closer to the population that lives within the city. The school will open as you see there, and really the mission of the school overall is to bring together the various degree programs and research labs that we have touching data science. So sorry for the animation here. I thought I had gotten rid of it. But here is a look at our overall vision. And we can maybe, when we have the conversation, talk about why we are very focused on these three words of data science, that is equitable, informed, and secure, and the values that drive the data science work that's being done at UTSA. You'll see some similarity, particularly with the mention of FAIR that Arlyn presented. So there's some alignment there. In terms of our mission, I've circled a couple points here that I think are important to know. One is that while we are a school, we work very closely with the colleges at the university. And part of how we're serving is in focusing, providing a place for the programs that are offered by the different colleges to come together. We're currently focused on graduate programs and on experiential learning programs. In our research mission, we're mostly focused on interdisciplinary work that goes beyond single colleges. What we have here on this slide then is, so if you say what programs are offered by the School of Data Science, this is the list of the initial programs that are offered at the school. So the approximately 30 faculty that are involved with these programs, and initially 400 students will be resident in the new school when it opens in January 2023. So you'll see, in addition to the degree programs, we also have several boot camps, and we're in discussion about some new programs that we believe there is, we have signals that there is the need for. Example would be the professional science masters, which there seems to be a strong indication from local industry that it would be interested in that program. We also have additional data science degrees and a lot of connected cybersecurity degree programs that are offered by the school, but are not at this time directly affiliated with the school. A snapshot of our student enrollment. Right now, I mentioned we have around 400 students. These numbers we're looking at were from the fall of 2021, so they're a little bit off, but they're representative of the student body. And one thing to please note about our student body is we have a very large number of students who are from underrepresented groups and who are first generation. This ties very much into the mission of the school and the emphasis on increasing who gets to participate in data science. In terms of the kind of data science we want to practice, this is a slide I've used to say there is a difference between the data analytics and data science in my mind. Analytics, I think, it's tied very often to workforce development. But I think for any of our institutes or schools at all the universities that are represented, to truly meet their value to the school, we need to be developed in the business of knowledge development, the scholarship of discovery, as well as the scholarship of application, and also consider some of the meta and surround, which the more Sloan data science environments did so well. The research within our institute, we have some core methods and technologies that you'll see at the center of this diagram. Cybersecurity underlays much of what we do. And that's why when I mentioned earlier about the, I'm not going to try and figure out how to go back. There we go. When I mentioned that the data science we do is equitable, informed, and secure, we talk a lot here about you can have the most sophisticated, the most impactful algorithm in biomedicine or transportation, it can be made useless, rendered useless in no time if you haven't properly engineered and designed to protect it against attack. The current faculty and labs that are assembling that will be represented in the school, you can see a group of them here. What I want to mention here as you're glancing at the slide is, in addition to the faculty-led and research-led aspects, we have outreach to the city. So the city of San Antonio will have its data lab. That will be a partnership between the city, Google, and the school. And then the University of Texas Medical Center will have its Center for Bioinformatics. So we're really trying to extend the reach of the school. The school itself has a large conference center, a large number of places that people can intersect and meet. It has 3 large collaboration neighborhoods, and you can see some of the other statistics here. I wanted to just quickly take a look inside of the school to give you a sense. This is the front, this is a plan of the first floor, and maybe just calling attention to the fact that we're hoping that a future ADSA event will be welcome at the school. We have a cafe, an auditorium, and so on. One of the things we did within the school that was kind of fun is we have a naming scheme that uses all of the measures of data. So there are buildings in the room with the names of Kilo, Mega, Nibble, Bronto, and so on. That was a fun project. And we engaged faculty in the design of the building. For anyone undertaking a building project, this is something I'd be happy to talk more about, because we found the faculty engagement was truly valuable. Similarly, when we engage students and citizens in the design of the building, in particular around the art. And then one thing that I think all of us face, we are not, our schools and institutes are not these static objects at the universities that we're at. Our universities continue to evolve and change. One of the big changes for the School of Data Science at UTSA is, since we started in the past couple months, we've become an R1. That has changed the conversation about what the school needs to do. And then at the bottom of the slide here, and I'm done, are 3 of the challenges that we maybe can talk about that I had outlined in my 2-pager. I have some other information about the building, but let's see how the conversation goes and if that will be relevant to refer to. I really appreciate you listening to this. Thanks.
I think my first question will kind of focus first and on how both of you have 2 very rapidly evolving, very comprehensive schools of data science. How do you go about, and I'm going to take kind of 3 dimensions to this. How do you go about building community, kind of focused on those core values like you spoke about, Arlyn? I'll remind you of these as we go through. How you go about placemaking for faculty, for students, and so forth. And then finally, a little bit more of how that comes through in your building design. David, how you talked about how, faculty engagement in the building design was so important. So first, starting with building community around data science. How have you approached that? What are your lessons learned and kind of best practices you've learned? Arlyn first.
Sure, I'm happy to start. Yeah, I think that community interdisciplinarity, we use the language about data science being a team sport, and the fact that it's just literally not possible to be done correctly and by any one person or one entity even. And so at the very core of the way that data science was established, when the Data Science Institute was created at the University of Virginia, it actually started around a ground up swell of faculty talking about the kinds of, at that time, really using the term big data projects that they were doing, right? And so all of a sudden, it was just a bunch of faculty that were coming together and saying, hey, I need someone to help me do this. And, oh, I'm looking at that. And all of a sudden, you see things that are connected. And, oh, if I only had someone that had the capability to do this, then imagine what it could unlock, what kinds of questions I would be able to answer. And I think that the creation first of the Data Science Institute, and then the ability to hire faculty directly into the school, which was one of the things about the creation of the School of Data Science at UVA, has allowed for us to create that place, the collaborative opportunities for people to think about large scale interdisciplinary grants, to think about a place to go to find the person who's interested in, the method that is tied to the domain that allows all people to elevate the work that they're doing. So that's been an incredibly important tenet that continues to grow. And I think that there are physical space components of that, but also more importantly, just that, again, that building of community and the creation of opportunity for people to come together and have those conversations.
Sure. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Then David, for you, how's that process been with building community?
The first part of that process has been, what is our community? So we have the ambitious goal for an extended data science community. Let's just talk about the internal university. And there's even a challenge there, because this new building is, I forget, I'm going to say 10 miles from the main campus. So the University of Texas at San Antonio has two primary campuses, one that's on our outer belt and one that's downtown. Downtown is where a lot of the growth is occurring. But to create the community there, the initial members will be invited from 10 miles away to join. So there was even that, logistics challenge, like, what am I leaving? What am I becoming part of? So I think there's the ambitious goal for what is the university data science community. The other part of who is our community is that there has been such a large commitment by the university to the city, to the economic development organizations, to the companies that are in town. I think that this is probably true for those on the phone that come from smaller metropolitan areas, and though San Antonio is the 7th largest city in the country, its business core is smaller than, say, a Seattle or a San Francisco or a Boston or even the Virginia complex. So I think the role of the companies and the economic development, even City Hall, changes in these small areas. So that's part of what we've thought about in community building, is who do we start? And the important pragmatic tactical thing we had to do is pay a lot of attention to the initial members of the community. Who's actually going to come together, leave something they're out of now, and come to this building and become part of the initial, eventually 700 to 800 people that will be there. Let me just comment on one other thing you asked on the placemaking and building design. Mm-hmm. We've had a lot of focus on the building design being supportive of the collaboration we want to occur, but we can say more about that if there's interest.
Sure. No, that's so interesting, because that kind of building intentionally the kinds of projects that you want to support, the kinds of collaborations that you want to support, has that physical realm, as well as just that finding a place, a role for everybody within that whole organizational structure as well. So how have you managed that? So this relates a lot to interdisciplinary collaboration, obviously, right? So how have you been supporting or fostering these kinds of interdisciplinary collaborations among the faculty within your school, but also reaching out to other faculty who maybe have not been involved in the past? David, maybe start, and then we'll switch to Arlyn.
Sure. In terms of trying to use the building as a tool to support that collaboration?
Oh, just in terms of bringing people, maybe the building, but also just bringing people together to support those, foster and support those research teams. It could be through the building, but also maybe, mechanisms such as seed grants, or providing support in terms of co-teaching or advising of students, those kinds of structures as well.
So a couple of things we've done at the faculty level. We formed a faculty advisory council, and there we did not, we have a representative from every college. So that leads to us having a council that its members come from biology, education, mechanical engineering. I can't remember all the different area. Oh, anthropology. So we're trying to bring the integration partly there. So you have a faculty governance council that represents different disciplines. A second thing we're doing is that in any of the large grant pursuits, I mentioned one of the roles we have is to go after these large inter-college pursuits. We're thinking about who do we make sure is at the table. So if you have the subject matter experts going after an NIH grant who come from the health related areas, do we make sure that have they ever said, hey, we really need a statistician with us? Or we know they're doing some wonderful machine learning work up in the AI lab. Let's reach out to them. So we play that role of a connector to say, did you think of, have you asked, have you tried to connect? So we do some of that matchmaking would be a second thing. And then with the student population, we have a data science living and learning community, which is a residential college. So in there, you're mixing students who are interested in data science, who aren't necessarily in the data science academic programs. That from a student standpoint starts to create some synergies.
Absolutely. And that's wonderful that you're creating pathways that can integrate students who maybe traditionally were not considered data science students in that, in a more strict sense. Arlyn, how about you? How about fostering, supporting those interdisciplinary research groups or teams?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's incredibly important that we've learned is that there's plenty of space for everybody to play in the sandbox. And there's absolutely no need for us to try and own everything. And I think that was a lesson that we, or a tenet that we really thought about very strongly as we were thinking about what it was that we wanted to push forward. And how are we taking a look at what was happening at the university and what were we doing to elevate what was happening, what were we doing to augment it, and what were we doing to help people think about the new questions that they could address with data science at the core.
Sure.
And I think that that's a big part of community building, actually, is to come in and be the new entity that is going to take over whatever data science initiative that may have started to crop up within a particular domain is not going to help with collaboration along the way. And so I think that we really thought about how can we really play to the strengths that we have at UVA? How can we identify the gaps? And then how can we help move those kinds of things forward? And one of the mechanisms that we came up with to address this was the formation of what we would call a collaboratory. And so our collaboratories are these interdisciplinary but discipline-specific activities that leverage data science. And they would be in either a school or a unit. They might be directly connected with another school, or they may be connected to a vertical that would include people from a variety of schools. So for instance, we have a collaboratory in education where we are working directly with our School of Education and Human Development and thinking about data science in education and what that means and what kinds of opportunities there are. We have folks obviously, there's a direct collaboration with education there. There's folks that are working in psychology, for instance, that are working on brain development in students and how we can think about education and human development and brain development of students and what that means in terms of data science and education. Another example is we have a collaboratory with the Darden School of Business, thinking about business and data science, and how are we thinking about the ability to bring people together, again, creating physical space, and then also thinking about more of an intellectual space that we can provide resources that show that whether that is in the form of thinking about grant support or thinking about fellowships, right, where you have maybe postdoctoral students or graduate students that are assigned in a particular area that are helping to move forward the research in that area that's allowing those areas to grow. And the depth of those areas is going to help attract new people to those areas, which then allows them to grow organically. So that kind of, it's about where you're putting your resources. It's also about where you're focusing your energy, right? And I think that in addition to not owning everything, because there's just plenty to go around, there's also really thinking about what it is that you do want to own. So the same thing I was saying earlier in my presentation of, there's so much demand that it's really about defining what it is that you want to supply to really make sure that you're addressing the audiences, both students and faculty research interests moving forward.
Sure. Thank you both. We do have a comment in the chat window here. They're asking if you could talk about the evolution of data science degree programs in particular. They mentioned in the UTSA slides, the mission of the school is given to provide education in data science at graduate and undergraduate levels. UVA is also developing that bachelor's, they mention, and minor in data science. So I guess, so I think with the focus on that, so how has this approach or the evolution of this kind of developed at your respective institutions? Arlyn, do you want to begin since you were just speaking?
Sure, absolutely. And I think that, the evolution of degree programs is really an interesting story, I think. Everybody sort of has to decide where they want to start, right? And so the establishment of the Data Science Institute was the first degree granting institute that the university had ever established. So when the Data Science Institute was established in 2013, there was a part of its charge to be both research and education based. And so the Master of Science in Data Science degree program grew out of that. It was a collaboration between systems engineering, computer science, and statistics, as well as, again, the faculty swell of people that were doing all kinds of work in big data across a broad variety of disciplines. So that was the establishment of the MSDS program. The modality of that was influenced by the provost of the university was looking for how it is that we might move forward in the online space. Is there a good place to do this? Is there a good way to do this? And so we were given some resources by Central to be able to pull our resources online, which, by the way, were helpful given that was established before COVID happened and we had to move things online. We're able to utilize those resources in those instances. And then, but it was always defined when the School of Data Science was formed, it was always going to be, there was always going to be additional degree programs. And so it was, but there are politics to play at any university, right? And so again, it's about not trying to own things. So it's really has been a process of carving out what it is that we're offering that's different and what it is that we're doing that's utilizing things without replicating. So we don't need to create a whole new repertoire of courses. So if you look at our undergraduate minor, for instance, there are a set of courses that come from a variety of disciplines that may meet the value component or may meet the analytics component of that undergraduate minor. Again, going back to that definition of data science and the way that we built that program. We will be building more classes at the undergraduate level that are internal to data science as we think about the collaboration across. But I think that tenet is still there. And I think that is a part of how we're fostering goodwill in terms of there are only a limited number of undergraduate students to go around. And so any students that we have are coming from another school or unit. And and again, I manage our budget, so I'm very aware of what those dollars start to look like. So that conversation is a real one, right? And so we just have to be honest about it and say, okay, how do we encourage participation in certain core courses that are not best developed by data science, but maybe by the College of Arts and Sciences, or maybe by the School of Architecture, or whatever the case may be. And the same thing was true in the development of our PhD program that's going through approvals right now. There's a co-advising component of that, where we're looking at opportunities to do things in discipline-specific areas that allow for a student to come in and have faculty mentors both within data science and within the domain. And I think that that's incredibly important and also opens up opportunities for access. that were not available, and really also looking at the courses that have been barriers for access for certain populations and making sure that we're not creating those or recreating those barriers in the establishment of programs at the in data science.
Sure.
So that's kind of how we've grown.
Well, it's amazing how so much of what you're mentioning I can totally relate to, and I'm sure a majority of our audience as well can, because I think these are common struggles going on across the university. So, David, how have you managed a lot of these issues?
So my tenure at UTSA is 7 months. So I will speak partly about things that have occurred before here, but I would say the main drivers to starting up the degree programs was workforce development. It was driven by local demand. It was driven by some local influential firms. And the first, I don't know if it was the first degree, but it's become the largest degree, is the Masters of Science in Data Analytics. And then there's something else that started to drive more recently, thinking about more degrees, and that's the revenue model of the university. And this may be true at your universities too. Depending on your revenue model, all the various players could be driven to create their own data science programs. And that's something, as a School of Data Science, I'm trying to manage, to go back to something Arlyn said, we don't want to replicate. So we're actually we have now these 4 master's programs. And just among those, we're going to be doing 2 things. One, getting all the owners of those programs together, evaluating, what are we covering? What territory are we covering? And then we're going to do listening sessions with industry to make sure we're covering what we need to. But then the second part I want to say about developing programs, more recently, the new Masters of Science in Artificial Intelligence goes to something I mentioned earlier about the balance. We have this issue of balancing scale, right? The workforce development, all the firms care about how many people are you producing for us. But then there's scholarship, right? And now, particularly because we're in R1, there's, well, what are we contributing to the data science academic knowledge base, right? So where's our knowledge development? So we're trying to be scale and scholarship. And that means that on this side of scholarship, degrees like the MS in AI are not directed towards putting you into the workforce. They're directed to advancing AI discovery and laying pathways into academic positions. So there's multiple drivers. There's outside demand for the degree programs. There's internal drivers based on the revenue potential for the various colleges. And the third is how do we compete nationally? Are we not just a workforce machine, but we're also contributing to the discovery and advancement of education nationally?
Yeah, so speaking of those internal and external drivers there, tell me a little bit, we have kind of limited time, right, Steve? But tell me a little bit about your partnerships. And these could be partnerships with industry that have kind of, you spoke a little, David, about how that kind of defined those workforce demands out there. But then also how have maybe some of these partnerships developed into something else? David, you first.
Yeah, so right now, I would say at this point in the school's life, which is, even though it was established a long time ago, in terms of actually figuring out what we're going to be, has been, 8 to 12 months. The major partnerships have been with donors. Private investors in the university and in the school. And because they believe in the value of data science, they particularly believe in the fact that this university, because of its student demographic, can help diversify the data science workforce. I don't know if all of you recently saw, but there was yet another article and a set of statistics from Forbes about, the low single-digit participation of women and particularly underrepresented groups in data science.
Right.
Well, a school that has 67 to 70% students that are from underrepresented groups or first generation, so I would say there's been that investment of specific donors and the specific mission that is affecting who we partner with. Mm-hmm. Then the next round of partnering tends to be with businesses headquartered here in San Antonio. And the final round would be lots of the workforce development and K through 12 groups in the city, reaching back and interacting with them.
Oh, interesting. At another time, I'd really love to hear more about that in particular, but in interest of time. So I think those partnerships are really fundamental. It's that focus. So how has that affected your programming in particular, kind of making that leap between the curricular offerings and then how those partnerships or private donors, however it is? I think you guys are unique that you both kind of had these private donations that started these schools of data science rather than kind of ongoing contract support or something like that, like a lot of other institutions may have in to the contrary. So Arlyn, how about you? How about these partnerships?
Yeah, and again, the start of the School of Data Science, the Data Science Institute also started with a private donation, and then the ability to scale and to grow at the rate that we were able to grow was a huge part of how that private donation made such a big difference in the establishment of the school and really made it possible. I think that as we've thought about what partnerships really mean, we have started to think about what we would call sort of a stacked approach to the way that we think about our sort of, especially corporate partners, right? So we have an external advisory board of really fantastic folks that are in industry. A lot of them have connections to the university, either our alums themselves or our parents of students that are in this world, and they talk to us about the curriculum and things that they're seeing and the things that they need. And but when we engage with companies and we say, they say, oh, I want to work with you on a capstone project, or I want to work with you on it's always one thing that there is of particular interest, right? And then we say, okay, that's great. That's, 99.9% of the time, right? Like, oh, that's great. It's something that aligns well with what it is we're trying to grow here. And so how can we then create a partnership that is stacked where we're thinking about doing capstone projects? How are we thinking about the faculty that we're bringing in that maybe are creating a common thread of a communication with a particular company that leads to connection with our career services that creates a direct talent pipeline into that company? And then how are we giving then research opportunities for that company to engage with the university on particular research interests? And then might there be opportunities to do things like sabbaticals, where we have people that are taking sabbaticals in industry, and where we have people from industry that are taking sabbaticals at the school? I think unlike what David is doing at UTSA with the physical building, our physical building actually is chunked right in the middle. It's very interesting because the university is established around the academical village, which is the core, the center of the university. But then there is what is called North Grounds. It's about a mile away, right? That is where the school, the business school and the law school and JAG school are. And there's always been this big disconnect between the two. And so the university has a big strategic plan for the big plot. They purchased all of the land in what they're calling a corridor, an Emmett-Ivy corridor, which is the name of the two streets that intersect there, which is the opportunity to grow out and connect those two spaces. They're talking about pedestrian access. They're talking about the ability to easily go from one place to the other. And we are the first academic building on that corridor. And there's also a hotel and conference center there that's going to allow for the ability to bring in that kind of external. And so we thought about, okay, we have created a corporate commons where we're talking about a place that's almost like an inverted WeWork, right? Where people can come in and they have a meeting with students and then they sit and they work for the day.
Right.
Because how many times have you been to a university where you have to take an entire day to go and hold one hour meeting with a student because you have to find a place to park and then walk 45 minutes and then have your 1 hour meeting and then, right? And so we wanted to create a space where there's an intellectual community an intellectual community that our corporate partners can be a part of. They can give talks, they can participate in the life of the building, they can participate. And so we start to stack these ideas and try and connect opportunities for our corporate partners to engage with us on a variety of levels. And it's something that's growing right now, but it's something that's been successful for us to date and is a really exciting thing as we grow.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, I think we're all attracted to data science because there's such a variety of opportunities and unique challenges as well, though. So like you mentioned the parking, yeah, I can relate. I mean, it's such, being in an urban environment, that is a huge challenge. I think this has all been so interesting. So I'm going to ask you to make a prediction. And as Yogi Berra told us, prediction is hard, especially about the future. But what would you predict is going to be one of your future biggest challenges as you kind of look forward to the future and think in a short manner, because we've only got like maybe 4 minutes left here, but what would you say is going to be your biggest challenge as you move forward? Is it going to be that creating the community or kind of that placemaking, or is it going to be something else?
I can go. I would
Go
say
ahead.
it's going to be meeting increased demand, because while we have an initial from a couple places, one, while we've had some convincing to do with faculty and students that it's a great thing to be in the new school in the middle of the city rather than on the outskirts, I think what happens is it's going to become, oh, can I be there too? So I think there'll be that increased demand. Second, the increased demand is just from, we cannot keep up with the companies asking us to develop programming for them. And now that we're going to be even more visible in the city, I think there'll be that increased demand. So that's the big challenge, because you can't be everything to everybody.
That's right. And choosing what to focus on, I'm sure is alongside of that a huge challenge as well. Yeah. Arlyn, and you.
Yeah, I would say something very, very almost the same but related. What I call bounded ambition is the same kind of thing, right? So we there's so much demand for what it is that we're trying to do, and I think that so we have to grow, and we sometimes joke about the fact that we had a 5-year strategic plan and we're like, oh, look, we accomplished everything in 2 years. But by the way, everybody is flat on the floor because they've worked themselves entirely to death doing it, right? And so we have to think about our people and what that looks like. And so in order to do that, we need to bring in more human resources to meet that demand. And I think that in order to do that in a way that is responsible and in thinking about the diversity that's necessary to really push forward the field of data science, you have to be very, very careful. Because when you're trying to do things too fast, that is when a lot of times those kinds of core values get compromised. And so it's incredibly important, and it will be a challenge, but it's one worth taking, to say we will not compromise on these values, and we are going to build something that is going to do what we can at the speed that we can to address those issues while remaining true to that value of diversity and inclusion in the field of data science and at the school.
Yeah, absolutely. That certainly resonates. I mean, managing the growth, managing our capacity to meet, say, the industry demands, but also staying true to the values, those core values, that, keeping the diversity and equity at our core focus is a big challenge. So that is a wonderful note, and I hope that our audience can spend a little bit of time, I know I will, reflecting on how we can continue to create the right kind of programming, but do so in a way that is responsive to our stakeholders, to our students, though, particularly, and manage this in an effective and value-centered way. Thank you so much. This has been so interesting, and it's been nice to see you both. Steve, any last words from you?
I want to thank everybody for being here today, and to our speakers and moderator. This has been a great session. I want to make sure everybody knows that next week we have a session. It's not a data science conversations. This will be a session on data science program accreditation, where the speakers will be talking to us about the current process of a kind of emerging process of accreditation for data science programs, what the current status of that process is, and where things are headed. So please join us next week. And with that, thank you all.